Hi, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here today to celebrate the signing of Senate Bill 1432, which was a necessary and important step to protect water access for the residents of Rio Verde. I have to start out by thanking everyone who worked tirelessly to get this bill to my desk. Senator Watts, obviously, as the bill sponsor, but also Representatives Tarek and Culloden, thank you for reaching across the aisle to pass this bipartisan bill. This legislation I'm signing today shows what we can get done when we put politics aside for the good of everyday Arizonans. To the residents of Rio Verde, thank you for being patient and for using your voices to advocate for your community. I think I can speak for everyone in this room when I say that this was not an easy lift, but was a necessary one, and we were all better off for it. Water security is one of the biggest challenges facing our state, but Arizona has long been a steward for smart and responsible water management, and this bill is a continuation of that legacy. I hope that this group of legislators and others can continue to work in a bipartisan way to protect our water future for generations to come. We will need this type of collaboration, understanding, and mutual respect as we continue the work of securing our water future, and I'm optimistic that we can get that done. This bipartisan bill shows that when we put politics aside, we can come together to solve problems for everyday Arizonans. While it's not perfect, I'm glad that we are able to deliver relief for the residents of the Rio Verde Foothills. Moving forward, I promise to keep working across the aisle to protect water for every Arizonan and ensure that we continue our growth and make Arizona the best and raise a family. And again, I want to extend my deep gratitude to those who made this happen. Thank you. And with that, I will turn it over to Meredith DeAngelis, who's the chair of the Rio Verde Foothills Standpipe District Board. Did I get that right?
Thank you. Yes, you did. Thank you so much. It is an honor to be here today. It's been a long time coming, and we're very, very excited. So first, I would like to thank Governor Hobbs for signing SB 1432 so that my family and so many others in Rio Verde Foothills can secure affordable water for our homes again. I moved out to Rio Verde Foothills about 11 years ago from Scottsdale. My daughter was 2 years old at the time, and we wanted a home for land, gardens, chickens, space for just outside living, mountain bike riding, stargazing. It's just beautiful if you've not been out there. Once we moved in, we just fell in love with our home. And just the beautiful desert living out there is incredible. We never had a well on our home. When we moved in, our realtor said it was common for the area to be on hauled water. We never really imagined that we would be in the situation we are today. And if it wasn't for this bill, I really can't imagine what would have happened to our home. So I sincerely thank everyone who supported this bill. And I would especially like to thank Senator Wadsack for getting it done. It was an amazing feat. Senator Kavanaugh also was involved, Representative Culloden, and Representative Tarek. So thank you so much for being involved and for appointing this team and this board. I'd like to thank again Governor Hobbs for appointing me. I am the chair of the board. Also Senator Peterson for his appointee, Representative Toma, and Commissioner Susan Nicholson with the Real Estate Department, and Tom Bushotsky as far as Department of Water Resources, all appointed people for this board. You guys made an excellent choice in the board members that represent the community and what we need. I'd also like to thank the board. Most of us are here today, so Kent Thomas, Mike Mueller, Thomas Braun, and Chris Strafowski for serving on the board with me. The board has been incredibly busy. We jumped in super fast. We took our oath of office. We went through training on open meeting laws since we're all new to being on a government board. Established a website for communications. We started on July 20th with our open meetings. We have about 2 a week, making great progress. Let's see, we've been having great meetings with key stakeholders. We look forward to signing agreements with both EPCOR and the City of Scottsdale to ensure that the Rio Verde Foothills community has water for their homes for this interim solution. After that, we'll keep the community appraised of everything that's going on as far as key milestones for the long-term solution with EPCOR that is currently under review with the Arizona Corporation Commission. So I'd like to thank City of Scottsdale, EPCOR, the community, and my fellow board members for their willingness to help us. I'm optimistic that together we can get affordable water back to the Rio Verde Foothills community. There's been several other elected officials, staffers, and so many others that have worked incredibly hard for our community. So I'd just like to thank everyone for that. Thank you.
Everyone get their shots? We're all good?
Yes. Is there Thank you.
All right, we'll open the time up for some questions. I know we're all friends here, but if you could say your name and outlet before, and if you have a question for someone other than Governor Hobbs, please indicate that at the beginning of your question.
Good morning, Governor.
Hi.
I appreciate that we've solved the problem for these folks and we can get into the issue of wildcat subdivisions and the rest of it. We have problems throughout the state, rural areas, over pumping, folks still moving into areas thinking there'll be water there forever. This is all very nice. This is a Band-Aid. So now how do we fix the rest of it?
You're absolutely right. This is a Band-Aid. This is what the Water Policy Council has been set up for. They are tackling these issues right now, and I'm looking forward to seeing their recommendations so that we can move forward with legislation in a bipartisan manner in the next legislative session. Yeah.
Yep, hold on.
Hi, Sasha Huffman with the Arizona Republic. I reported out a few months ago a story that showed that nobody is tracking where hauled water goes across the state, so there's no government agency that actually knows how many communities in Arizona might be partially or wholly dependent on hauled water and might be facing the same situation in the near future as Rio Verde Foothills. I wanted to ask both you, Governor Hobbs, and then the two lawmakers here as well, do you all support the idea of trying to task a government agency or the counties with tracking that type of hauling? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's not something, I don't know if you guys want to jump in, but I'll just say, I think this is, again, one of the things we have to look at in the broader picture of water. And it's the kind of thing that assured water supply programs are designed to prevent, and that these wildcat subdivisions continue to perpetuate the problem. So I'm hopeful that the Water Policy Council will close these loopholes so we're not seeing this kind of situation in the future. I don't know if you want to add.
Yeah, I think as we move forward with Arizona's water future, it's very important to know where all of our water is and what issues might arise from that. And certainly, as Governor Hobbs mentioned, closing some of those loopholes so that we're not putting additional Band-Aids on for other communities, I think will be very important. And I think there is some political will to do that. Hopefully next session, we'll be able to work on closing some of these.
Mark?
Yes, Mark Phillips, ABC 15. To the board, what are the next steps as it relates to Rio Verde before you can turn on the spigot?
Yeah, so next steps is we're in negotiations with City of Scottsdale. So we still need to use that existing infrastructure that we were using previously. So we're in negotiations with them to get that worked out. And then also we're in negotiations with EPCOR, who will be providing an outside source of water. So we needed to make sure that we found our own water and that we weren't using any water from the City of Scottsdale. So we're in negotiations with EPCOR. Everything's working really well with those two. And then we just have a lot of setting up billing and systems and all of that type of stuff. But so far, everything's going really smoothly, and we're doing some community census just to find out how many people are dependent on hauled water. So those are numbers that have been thrown around that we just need to make sure that we've got the right number and that we're having good communications with the community so that we make sure we get everybody who needs hauled water.
Do you have any timetable as to when you will have water?
You know, we haven't really put out a timetable for that. We are certainly, now that we've kind of got negotiations and contracts going back and forth, we probably think several more weeks of kind of back and forth with that. So really, we're hoping something within the next 30 days.
One last question. You've been charged with a much bigger deal than just Rio Verde to come up with action plans for the legislature to consider. When you got into this, just trying to get water for yourselves, did you ever imagine you would actually become maybe the tip of the spear on this issue?
So I think in the very beginning, when I got involved with this, was, basically working with the media and the community to share what's going on. And I would say, no, at that point, I did not think that. But I would quickly say that we realize that this problem is much larger than just Rio Verde Foothills. So what everyone has done now to get this bill and to start having those questions on how many people are doing hauled water, what does that look like? How much water is that? Is it going to the right places? Is the beginning of what this needs to look like. And I'm very confident that the folks here today are going to work really hard on making sure that this becomes what it needs to be for people like us who rely on hauled water and who, it's very foreign to a lot of people on the fact we do not have pipes coming into our home, but we are not the only ones in Arizona that live in that situation.
Let's go to Luke.
Yeah, Luke Forstner, KTAR News. So, and I think this is for you, Meredith, as well. There's been a lot of disagreement in the community about the best way to tackle this. When you're talking to members of the community, how are they feeling about this solution? Does the fact that they can kind of see the end in sight maybe make some of them feel better about it? What are they saying about this solution to the water problem?
Yeah, I've been in so many meetings from the very beginning, so I've seen it all, right? The community, it was really hard for them to know what's the right path and what does that look like. And fortunately, since we have this bill, everyone's aligned to this is the right path, this is what's going to work. So the meetings with the community have been phenomenal. They've been very supportive, they've been very helpful. I feel very optimistic that they'll be happy once, we haven't really necessarily shared dates yet, but I think as long as they know that water is going to start coming back in the next 30 days, I think they're going to be very relieved. It's hot and everyone's worried, and there's a lot of people out there with horses, and they want to just make sure that this is successful, and they've really helped us make sure we do that.
And as that heat has continued, are there any kind of stories or things you'd like to share from that community as we are waiting for that water to come through? I know we've had issues with animals in the past. Any updates on any of those situations?
I think what everyone's done in this community has been amazing. So when you talk about a neighborhood of people who probably did not know each other, we all have a lot of land and we're spread out, everyone has jumped in to help each other, and people have helped with horses, people have helped people who needed water. There's people who've made donations for water for some that are struggling financially. So I would certainly say the community has really stepped up in making sure that everyone's doing okay this summer.
Barbara.
Yeah, Barbara V, Arizona News Radio, and you kind of answered the question, but paint more of a vivid picture about what have you been doing as far as a water source goes? Where have you been getting your water? How have you been dealing with this situation?
So I think many of us, like myself, have really cut back and conserved on our water. So, I'm probably using maybe 1,800 gallons a month of water, which, most households are probably 10,000 gallons. And really what it is we've basically adopted desert landscaping. So we do not have anything that we water outside of our home, as far as it's all just, we have a lot of dirt, but beautiful cactus and rocks and all of that. So it's really is making sure that you can, when you live in the desert, embrace that desert landscape. It's beautiful and it doesn't use a lot of water. So that's the first thing. Then it's also just conserving your water. So really it's flushing toilets only when you have to, showering sometimes at the health club and things like that a lot of us are doing. So everyone's really cut back on how much water they're using. But I also think a lot of things that we have done, a lot of people across the state can adopt this, and we'd use a lot less water, and we can continue to just thrive as Arizona is growing. And I think if everyone watches how much water they're using and makes some simple cutbacks, we can all learn from this.
Primarily just hauled in water.
It is, so mine is, I'm still 100% dependent on hauled in water.
Does anybody else want to get something in before I go back to Hallie? Brad?
Hi, Meredith.
Hi.
President.
Good to see you.
Nice to meet you. Can you drill down a bit on issues of cost, how much this water is going to cost? And also, Joanna Allhands in her reporting raises questions about the water source, the Rio Verde, and there might be some stickiness there.
Yeah, so as far as costs, we don't have costs yet. And so everybody knows there's a lot of cost that goes into this. So of course there's the cost of the water, right? So we will be getting the water from EPCOR. We're in negotiations of what that's going to look like and how much that's going to cost. Then that water is going to go in through Scottsdale to treat and transfer the water. So we're in negotiations for what that cost is. Then there's also billing and administrative costs. So most likely that will be handled by EPCOR. So then there's discussions on what those costs look like. And then finally the last cost would be the water haulers. So good news is the costs right now are so high because the water haulers are having to travel significantly further to get that water. That is why we have the spike in the water costs that we have today. And we also have unreliable sources. So it's just very difficult right now for affordable water. So the water cost from what people are doing today should be significantly lower, not back to probably what it once was, which I don't think it will ever be there, but definitely affordable.
And can you respond to folks who say, hang on a second, they got this water district for them, there are still people moving in, building, homes being sold. How do you explain that when there's still a limited resource?
I think for us, that's a little bit outside of the board, right, as far as homes still being built. I think some of them are still planned. I think that that's where we need to partner with some of the folks here at the table today to discuss how do you build smartly? How do you handle some of these? Where, a lot of these lots, I don't think people realize is there's people who've bought those lots and they're building their retirement homes. So it's not big development out there. Yes, there certainly is development, but there's also a lot of people who bought that land a long time ago and have dreams of building their home on there. So we have to be really careful when we consider saying which ones are allowed to build and which ones are not, and who owns that land and what that looks like. So there's a lot of moving parts to answer that question, and I think right now we just need to partner with everyone here and figure out what that looks like.
Ally?
Senator, come on down. So, I have this wonderful shot of you standing next to the governor, signing the bill. You're a member of the Freedom Caucus, which has been, shall we say, less than charitable to our governor. Are you going to lose your card and membership for the Freedom Caucus? I mean, you basically, and the whole caucus has basically said, we're in a scorched earth policy with this governor.
I've never said scorched earth. That's your words, not mine.
Understood, but you do understand what has been released under the name of the Freedom Caucus.
The Freedom Caucus believes in liberty and freedom and free markets and capitalism. When it comes to these water issues, we have issues in southern Arizona, just like we've had in the Rio Verde district. Picture Rocks, Vail, Saurita, 3 Points. They all use well water. Some of the wells have gone dry and they have to truck in their water. And how do I know this? I'm a real estate agent. So I work with a lot of people who are buying and selling. And when they can't buy or sell because the water issues are there and they are real, it hits close to home. When I was in committee, in government committee, which is chaired by Jake Hoffman, Senator Hoffman, who also is Freedom Caucus, when you have people from the Rio Verde district standing before you saying that they have to make choices between giving their horses and their farm animals water or taking a shower and giving their family water, it brings tears to your eyes. You realize this is not the way people should be living in 2023. And if we have these types of water issues, we need to come together and find a way to fix this, because water is life. Water is not partisan. Water is not political.
So are we looking at more water levels of government like was set up here for, as you say, whether it's Picture Rocks or Saurita?
I don't believe that we need to add future layers of government. I'm one who believes in fewer layers of government, less government control, less government regulation. But I think that with the decades of water focus in Arizona and not having strong solutions by now, I think it's time to start looking at new people to sit at the table to have these discussions. I think we've been learning from the definition of insanity, which is letting the same thing happen over and over and expect different results.
But you did form a new level of government in your bill.
Not necessarily. It's a temporary level of government, because when you don't have something in place, you have to have something in place that people can manage and can receive data from. And for top-level government to take care of such a dire need, if we don't have a panel of people that we can go to and say, where are we with X, Y, and Z, then that to me is a valuable short-term government solution. But it's not a full term. They will be disbanding.
All right, we have time for one or two more. Wayne?
Wayne Chesky, Arizona Capital Times. Much like you came together here for a bipartisan solution, do you believe you and your Republican colleagues could get behind a solution to address wildcat developments in general and the problem of them being built with no true bars?
Yes, one of the things I'm very proud about is my relationship with Representative Colladin, Representative Kavanaugh, and Representative Tarek. And the fact that we were able to come together at this point in juncture, we had more issues with some of the people in my own party than I did working across the aisle. So we need to remember, water is not political. When it comes to the access to water in our state, we need to think of the people first.
Easy family.
Governor, Gibby AZ family, a little off topic here. Yesterday, President Trump announced he is not debating. How does that make you feel when Republicans slammed you last year for not debating?
I have not given it any thought at all.
Come on, it's a softball, Governor. Come on.
All right, Mark, let's finish this off.
Also off topic, Governor, I'd just like to ask you about the issues with DCS and the records. First off, is your office supplying any additional support to that agency to help them work their way through this?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, this is an issue that started when the system was implemented back in 2021. And Director Lujan, in his short time at the agency, has done a lot to turn around things that we have seen as problematic. This is one example of that. We're continuing to work through the records and ensure that we're addressing any issues that came out of those records, and our office is continuing to work with them.
Just curious, when did you find out about all this? I know that the Auditor General submitted a report on the agency either in June or early July. Is that when you first heard of this?
We just heard about it this last week.
We can do follow-ups on this topic.
Yeah.
So I talked to the previous DCS director yesterday, and he said your press release called it a mischaracterization of the issue. He said that the staff was well aware that this process was in place and that it was put in place for a reason. Did you have a response to that?
Well, I think that there might have been some concerns about records erroneously being filed in the wrong place. But we were able to quickly change the default so that records would be filed and not have this backlog. So I think there's quality control issues in both regards, but this new default moving forward will prevent this backlog and ensure that these records are timely filed.
I think his issue was that the characterization that this was like a flaw in the press release put out and everything like that. He believed that didn't correctly characterize the situation.
I'm not aware of his remarks, so I don't want to really comment further on that.
Is it on this topic? Yeah, okay. Last one.
Mary Jo Pitzel from the Republic, also following on DCS. The juvenile court in Maricopa County indicated this morning that they're not going to halt trials, that they're going to proceed and have a note made to the record if any given case is affected by this. The request was to give us a break for 2 weeks so we can sort this out, but is this going to complicate those plans?
I don't think so. I think we'll continue working closely with the courts and ensure that these cases are not affected by this issue.
And are you hearing anything from the public about this in terms of parents, adopted parents, bio parents who have had cases that seem to be on the bubble now?
I'm not aware that we have, but we can follow up on that.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
There are other people available for one-offs if you want to.
Yeah.